My name is Malvika and I'm at Open Shell Farm. It's a project of Swayam where we're working on ecological regeneration of the landscape. We're talking about Zone 1, our kitchen garden. It's located right in front of the house and the land is sloping to the south and the west. So you see, we located the house in the lowest part of the land. Now that is facing the west. Now this was a problem in the sense that we could not direct our grey water effectively. However, we solved that problem, but we also made this problem into a solution. Now, the house being on the west side is protecting this entire zone 1 kitchen garden from the harsh sun and the wind that's coming in from the west. Having said that, we are also getting a lot of sun from the south and the wind from the south. So we have put in this whole trellis to be able to shade out this zone 1 kitchen garden and at the same time plant a lot of trees along our south border. So you see, these are little strategies. We cannot change the landform. These are little strategies that we are trying to use to build up the soil, to protect the zone 1 kitchen garden and still be able to get a productive harvest. Like you see here is we broadcasted green manure. Now this will be all chopped down and incorporated back into the soil. What we have here is we have sun hemp, we have daincha, we have horse gram, we have some lablab, we have some velvet bean. All of these are going to be chopped and incorporated by our bullocks into the landscape. Now this is just 50 by 50, 2500 square feet intensive kitchen garden, and our plan for us under the trellis is to have vegetable beds like this, which again are going to be incorporated with a lot of biomass. You see, this was a vegetable bed that was made by the participants who came in for introduction course last season. So we're going to make these vegetable beds and have our vegetables growing here. So these are one of the ways that you can improve your zone 1 by incorporating green manure, by making compost, by strategizing the location. It takes a little time and energy, but I think it's worth it, So we are now in the 5th year and we're focusing on intensive vegetable production for people who are living here. Yeah, so you see the land is sloping towards the west and we have these trellises that are laid out, and we are following the contour for the vegetable beds. Now that is crucial for water management and to also reduce your work and then movement of things and materials around the landscape. So we have this raised bed that was made from the previous batch. We cleared up the soil, loosened the soil because there's so much of compactness. And if you see, this is how our soil is, I mean, we've taken out so many rocks, but it's like rocky and stony and dry. So we dug up the beds. It's like a double dig bed. We dug up the beds. We mixed in a little bit of a clay. We mixed in a lot of biomass, diverse biomass from the site, green and brown. And then we broadcasted, a lot of vegetable seeds. You see amaranth, you see fenugreek, you see okra, we have marigold, we have sword beans which are going to climb up the trellis, we have wing beans, we have all of these diversity. We have these purple bush beans. We have all of this diversity building up on the vegetable beds while they're getting protected from the west sun. And this is how we have been working on our soil. You see, our soils are laden with stone and lot of stones, and this is how our soils are compact and lot of stones, lacking fertility, literally no topsoil. And we're using this resource, which is a problem to for building our buildings. We use them as stone mulches around our tree pits. We put them into our swales as well, so it creates a little microclimate, and slowly breaking down, creating some soil. So we've double dug our beds using a broad fork, which you see here. We got this made locally with our blacksmiths here, and we have been incorporating a lot of dry biomass. You see, it's a diverse dry biomass which we have collected over these last few months from Mysore and some of our own crop residues. We have a compost here. We have a Jivamrita which we made and then we have a little bit of clay soil, literally silt from the lake. And so what we do is, on the bed we put in the brown matter, lot of a green matter, which is primarily Gliricidia choppings, sun hemp, taincha, Sesbania grandiflora, chopped, sprinkled with our tonic, that's Jivamrit, and this is all incorporated back into the soil. We will let this bed sit for a week or 10 days. We would probably water it a bit in between if there's no rains, and then we do our planting. So it's kind of a in situ composting that we are making, and putting in all the elements that it's lacking right now to enhance and speed up the buildup of humus and fertility. So these beds are about 30 inches wide and the pathways are 18 inches. And like you see, the pathways are lined with a lot of mulch. We had coconut fronds from our old thatch hut. We had some ragi hay. We had some sorghum that got molded with the rains that happened last season. We have been covering the beds with coconut frond like this to prevent evaporation losses from the sun and the wind. And then after 2 days we have been taking these coconut fronds from the beds, and you see how you can see a lot of these seeds that are already germinating here. We also used a lot of Gliricidia that we have been growing over these last few years for the shortage of mulch along the pathways. We covered that with the dry leaves that have been, again, we've been scavenging the dry leaves from the cities and bringing them in sacks as and when we are traveling back and forth. We set up sprinkler gardens, sprinkler systems for the garden, and we're looking at a bountiful harvest in the days to come. One other important aspect of water harvesting design is not just having swales on contours, but also to be able to flow on contour or have your vegetable beds also on contour. You see here how the pathways are holding water and making sure that the water is held in these little on contour trenches in the spaces in between the swales. Putting in holes for the pitchers and putting in the coir ropes inside and getting them all ready for the trees that are going to be planted today. So between the swales we have what we call alley cropping. Again, this crop system is rotated every season, so there's crop rotation, and what you see here is a multi-crop system where we have chickpeas intercropped with safflower and corn. In a west-facing slope, depending on where you are in your region, here for us we have the intense sun. It's almost southwest, and we also have the gusty winds from the monsoons. So inside the last swale, we have planted bananas and sugarcane. Now these also need protection from the sun and the wind. So on the outside of the bund, we have planted bamboo. There's Gliricidia, Sesbania grandiflora, Mexican sunflower. These are again biomass plants which can be chopped during the non-windy season, allowing for air circulation and providing enough mulch and biomass for the crops here. And towards the east part of the swales, we only have biomass plants. We have subabul, again Gliricidia, Sesbania grandiflora, Mexican sunflower, some pigeon pea, sun hemp. Now these biomass plants are not just for biomass, but they have multiple functions. Like in permaculture, where we use an element for at least 3 functions. They provide fodder, they provide forage for the bees, they provide for mulch. They also add beauty, they create microclimates, they provide some mild shade when the crops are germinating. And these being species that can be coppiced, we also manage to get the east sun on the crops. So it's important to incorporate sector analysis and into your design when you're deciding on the crops. Again, within the crop field itself, you can plan your intercrops in such a way that you have the tallest towards your sunniest side and the windiest side. Again, in that you will have to choose species which are resistant to wind and sun, or which can be a sacrificial multifunctional species. So although it looks very simple and straightforward, it's very important to include observation and understanding of your site and these various elements that are at play which influence your design.